ancient Greece. For many, the cradle of Western civilization. Long before the birth of Christ, its people set new standards as architects, inventors of democracy, scientists, and philosophers. But was ancient Greece really so brilliant, so exemplary for the world? Research increasingly reveals the dark side of a culture that is often idealized: violence, oppression, and slavery. The truth about ancient Greece. Aesthetic art carved from bright stone, a symbol of classical Greece. But this is not the reality of antiquity. Back then, vivid colors covered the noble white. Life in ancient Greece differed from the long-held image, and not just in terms of color. A single life held little value. Peace was the exception. War was the rule. By the end of the 5th century BC, Greece had plunged into chaos. After the Persian Wars, 2 power blocks stood opposed. On one side stood Sparta, allied with more than a dozen city-states in the Peloponnesian League. On the other stood Athens and the Delian League, which ruled over the Aegean. The 2 power blocks clashed repeatedly over trade, over land, and above all, over supremacy. The spiral of violence spun ever faster. It led to a fratricidal war that would devastate the entire land. How could it come to this? What conditions led to this escalation? The search for answers begins in the port of Piraeus. Beneath the waters, archaeologists investigate the power dynamics of a war fought more than 2,400 years ago. In today's harbor basin, the remains of massive walls are discovered. The structure is immense. This was the war harbor of Athens, a place that must have profoundly impressed the people of antiquity.
Athens port was a demonstration of power to the entire Greek world and far beyond, reaching into the Persian Empire. It proclaimed this city and its harbor rule the world.
The stone fortification protected the very heart of Athenian power. The area measured more than 50,000 square meters, space for ship sheds as large as 2 football pitches. Hidden inside were ramps for nearly 200 warships, the notorious triremes. The expansion of the port was part of a fateful arms race between Athens and Sparta, on land and at sea. Athens, 1936. During excavations on the Agora, archaeologists unexpectedly uncovered traces of the Great Greek War. A bronze shield bearing a graffito. An Athenian must have scratched it into the surface more than 2,000 years before. From the Lacedaemonians to the Athenians in Pylos reads the mocking inscription: spoils of war taken home after a victorious battle against the Spartans. Usually, expensive shields were reused when captured from the enemy. Why not this Spartan one?
That a Spartan warrior had abandoned his shield was obviously important enough for the Athenians to display it at home as a trophy.
For Spartans, shields are part of their very identity, symbols of courage, much more than mere military tools. Spartan women sent their men into battle with the words, "Itan I epitas," with it or on it.
It means you were either victorious with your shield, or you were dead on your shield.
The aspis, as the Greeks called the shield, was the centerpiece of every hoplite's equipment. Diameter up to 1 meter, weight up to 7 kilograms. Each shield was constructed out of glued layers of wood. The outside was then covered with bronze. Inside was a mounting, the porpax, through which the left forearm was slipped. A taut rope served as a handle and stabilizer. The outside was often painted elaborately. With their shields, the hoplites formed a close phalanx in battle, an almost unstoppable advancing wall designed to strike fear into their enemies' hearts. Sparta's elite warriors against Athens' colossal fleet. Neither side would yield. Each believed it would emerge victorious from the looming war. Diplomacy had no chance. Sparta had been the dominant power for centuries, Athens only since the Persian Wars.
Many cities and states in Greece had got pretty fed up with the way that Athens was behaving and the way that Athens was throwing its weight around and trying to control everything. Sparta was one of these communities, very fed up with Athens.
In 431 BC, an ally of Sparta triggered a chain reaction. Thebes attacked Plataea, strategically important and allied with Athens.
Sparta led an alliance of Greek city-states to take on the Athenians and their allies. This was the great civil war that split the whole of Greece in two, that we know today as the Peloponnesian War.
Even contemporaries believed the conflict was inevitable. The historian Thucydides witnessed it firsthand and left behind a primary historical account. From his perspective, provocations from Athens were chiefly responsible for the outbreak of war.
Thucydides tells us that this was due to Spartan fear of the growth of Athenian power.
A bloody cat-and-mouse game began. Athens attacked the Peloponnese with its fleet. Spartan troops ravaged the countryside around Athens.
They really wanted the Athenian army to meet them in open land, but the Athenians were too smart to fall for that trap and simply withdrew within the core city of Athens, which by this time was protected by massive walls all around it that were simply impregnable.
The so-called Long Walls enclosed Athens all the way to the port of Piraeus, a fortress complex that could not be breached with the military means available in antiquity. But then, in the summer of 430 BC, Athens became a death trap. Once again, the Spartans had set the surrounding countryside ablaze, and once again, the people retreated behind the long walls.
Imagine suddenly a population of around about 100 to 150,000 swelling up to much more like 300, 350,000, all crammed within the city walls, all relying on the same resources to drink, to eat and to go to the loo, to be ill. It's a context in which plague begins to flourish.
A devastating plague broke out in Athens. The nature of the pathogen remained a mystery to scientists for centuries.
The Athenians didn't understand medically what the plague was or what caused it. It felt like the gods had turned against the city of Athens.
Even the historian Thucydides fell ill. He later described the symptoms: coughing, nausea, vomiting, bodies covered with sores. Some patients went blind.
The symptoms described by Thucydides could indicate a whole range of possible diseases. Epidemiologists have identified at least 26 different illnesses as potential causes.
Bubonic plague, anthrax, measles, Ebola. Researchers have debated various pathogens. Then, archaeologists made a chance discovery. During construction of a metro tunnel in Athens, workers came across a mass grave. 150 men, women and children, dating from the exact time of the mysterious epidemic. A team led by Manolis Papagrigorakis began investigations. Could they finally solve the mystery after more than 2,000 years?
Using DNA, we wanted to determine which diseases the Athenians died from during the time of the plague. This analysis had to be carried out using parts of the skeleton, such as bones and teeth.
The discovery of the remains of an approximately 11-year-old girl proved to be a stroke of luck. The researchers named her Myrtis.
What makes the skull of Myrtis unique is its good preservation. It retained 28 teeth, including primary teeth. That made it truly special amongst all the finds.
In the laboratory, the remains were meticulously examined for possible pathogens.
We carried out 7 tests, and during the seventh reagent yielded the answer.
Can the mystery of the so-called Attic Plague finally be solved after more than 2 millennia?
The cause of the Great Plague of Athens was the bacterium Salmonella enterica typhi. It causes typhoid fever.
Typhoid, which occurs when clean water is lacking. But the researchers now had a new ambition: to give the dead girl a face.
We applied the so-called Manchester method to Myrtis, reconstructing from the inside out. We placed and layered 20 muscles. That's how Myrtis's face was created, exactly as you see it here.
Face to face with 2,500 years of history. Through modern facial reconstruction, Myrtis became a celebrity, not just for tourists. One of nearly 100,000 victims of the plague that struck Athens during its war against Sparta.
It was a devastating plague that killed over 25% of the Athenian population. Law and order started to break down within Athens. The power and sense of community of the Athenians started to wane. The plague was an absolutely essential part of the reason that Athens started to lose the Peloponnesian War.